Greg wanted to make sure I was laughing to start the show this month. So welcome everybody to this month's Ham Talk. He goes, we're recording 3, 2, 1, and then nothing. Good job, Greg. Good job.
Hey,
and
I'm
you
here
guys
for you,
wonder
man.
why I give him a hard time every month. All right, like I said, welcome to this month's Ham Talk. Thank you so much. Slowly our numbers are climbing. Melissa was just giving us a rundown. Before we jump into all that, I would like to thank our sponsors, the Hamsters Week Signal Group, without whom none of this would be happening. So we appreciate them. Now, Melissa was just letting us know that our numbers have increased every month. So she's going to give us a quick little comparison of the numbers from, I think it was May to now. You got that?
Yeah.
Melissa?
Yeah, I was just comparing the numbers since May, and we have an increase in viewer count between 20 and 40 for every single video that we put out. So numbers are going up.
I'm beginning to think that they just tune in to see what color my nose lights up because of the overhead fluorescent light every month. So I had an exciting weekend this past weekend. I'm going to launch off with mine because I did the Lake of the Ozarks shootout, which is pretty well known. It's, I think, the biggest unofficial boat race in the United States, and our community emergency response team and our Aries, for the first time, our amateur radio emergency service, were both on scene. The CERTs were providing the first aid tent, and boy, were we jumping. And then Aries was on scene to get some boots on the ground training for how we handle communications with the first responder agencies and how they're going to jump in there and be able to help the CERTs. So I am frankly exhausted. All the energy you see right now, I literally just crammed 3 tacos down my throat and drank half a cup of cold coffee. So that went really well. Greg, really quick, how was your month since we filmed the last segment?
It's been actually pretty good. I mean, going back to work's changed my free time quite a bit, but got a lot going on. I finally managed to start working amateur radio back into my mornings and the drive home and everything. In fact, the other day on sideband, I managed to work 265 miles on 2-meter single sideband on the way home from work. So
awesome.
that was kind of cool.
That is awesome. And Miss Melissa, anything awesome since last month?
Well, if Greg had not told me that he was going back to work, I would have figured that out real quick, because it's been real quiet on his end. So I know he's been really, the quieter he is, the busier he is. I know for sure. No, I had a quick flight to Washington and back. That was the highlight of my recent activity.
Air travel since the pandemic. How was that?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Delta, and I was impressed. So yeah, I'm happy.
Wow, for once somebody said something good about air travel. I'm happy is the best they're going to get. And Miss Andrea, I believe I saw that there was some comedy going on in your realm.
I've been doing a lot of comedy lately. Not sure what to say about it other than
do you have your bits on YouTube? Do you post those so that we can refer them over to your channel?
Generally not. I just did 30 minutes of drunk history this past week, and I have to say, I believe that while I was drunk, I definitely believe I'm funnier than I actually am. Now, I don't mean that I'm funnier when I'm drunk. It's just that while I'm drunk, I think I'm funnier. So I don't know.
I'll go with that one.
It did give me a thing that I think we should do drunk ham talk sometime.
Oh, wow. I don't know how I can pull that off because I have to do all the videoing from my office, so that would not work for me.
Oh yeah, that would go good to the city mayor or something. Come in, you're drunk in the office.
No.
Plus, you've got to drive home.
Oh God, no, that wouldn't work for me. I'd have to
I
stay
had
somewhere.
had a room across the street.
Yeah. Now, I won't say there's a lack of beautiful hotel rooms at the lake. So if anybody's visiting the lake at the Ozarks, we do have some gorgeous hotels and beautiful views of the lake. But yeah, as you guys can see, we're getting more feedback from the public and asking us about our lives and our days. And we want to bring that to you. I've been reading the comments. I'm sure some of you have seen the likes from me on your comments. Melissa, I know I'm going to mess with the order. Greg wanted to do everything, but I kind of just segued right into what you were going to do this month.
I'm used to it.
Do you, what did you have for the comments for this month?
Yeah, I have a collection. Some of these are older, and so I'll start off with, we did have a past comment, and it was a suggestion that maybe Andrea can do a segment on the trials and tribulations of mobile installs, some safety while mobile, mounting antennas and radios, battery power, and fuse information. We have another comment that came in from K0, KLB, ham radio, QRP recently. And they say, thanks for the entertainment. Always good to see your fun videos again. Thanks for sharing your segments. Good job. And I have a comment from Jerry rather. I put a K instead of a G. Jerry, KI5RRH. Thanks for what y'all do. I certainly would not be where I am in such a short time. 73, KI5RRH. And our most devoted watcher, Mike McDonald, says, I would love to see Greg's solar setup. Curious about RF hash, or if you have any interference from the solar setup. And then another.
Oh, pause right there though.
Yeah.
Mike, I know you're going to watch this. So here it is. We request pictures of your shack so we can get you on Melissa's segment, okay? Because we know you're our most devoted follower so far.
Greg, do you have any comments on the solar?
Yeah, on the solar thing, real quick, I had a lot of hash from the inverter originally, not from the charge controllers and stuff, but from the inverter itself. And I was able to completely filter that out. We're running two 10 kilowatt inverters, one for 220 and one for 110 in the house that feeds our breaker systems. And I will go into details on that. And I went up there after I saw that comment. When I was up there the last time, I took a bunch of pictures of the whole solar system. So I will put a segment together, not this show, but the following show for it.
He started talking about a solar system. And I thought he had his personal sun and set of planets.
Well, that would explain a lot, because I think Greg
The sun
thinks
does revolve around me.
him.
I'm just saying, the sun revolves around Greg.
Told you.
Well, that's what happens. It all goes around the biggest mass.
And that's why she's a comedian right there.
You know what? Where's the disconnect button? Oh, there's a mute button on her. I can mute her. That'll work.
That won't work. She'll just start holding up the signs like they do on that joke video that's going around TikTok or whatever right now.
Greg, muted.
Poor Melissa, we got her rolling. Did you have any more comments for us, Melissa?
Yes. I have one more, and that was, regarding the interview that I was doing. And the comment is, Melissa's poor cameraman needs to be checked on. I thought he was going to pass out and hyperventilate, breathing so hard climbing up those steps.
Well, that segue from her joke worked great.
It's a good thing this is a family show, because I have some comments.
It didn't help that, you know, we don't have professional cameras. We don't have those, you know, those targeted mics or anything like that. And the audio was a little bit difficult to hear of the interview. And, you know, Greg has the phone right there in front of his face. So the audience gets to hear him breathing, and
I'm old and fat.
I'm sorry, Greg.
All right.
Whew.
Well,
I can still climb a tower and do things.
That's right. That's right. So moving on, before I get us in any more trouble this month, we actually have a really interesting combination for Melissa and me, because my segment is actually going to be a walkthrough of our teeny little ham shack. It is nothing impressive, but I've had a number of people ask me about ours because they've seen a picture on my Facebook page or social media, and they know that it's yellow, just like Buzzer the Bee, my little guy from the EMA here. So there's been a few questions that I've gotten directly about our shack. So I'm going to go ahead and do a video walkthrough, and then Melissa and I are going to do a little back and forth for you guys. And that's going to kind of cover both of our segments in one for this month. I know how you guys like us tag teaming you. And then Greg says that he is finally going to give you guys the grounding segment he's been promising for 2 months, but we women are so long-winded last month that he just couldn't possibly get it in.
That's true. I just sat here silently, didn't say a word the whole show, and you guys just kept going on and on and on.
Okay, any of our longtime viewers, if you have a comment about that, leave it below.
Good thing we don't have an HR department.
And Andrea is doing something live. Is this what I understand? What is Andrea doing this month?
Oh, we're going to talk about the IC 905, Greg and I.
All right. Are you guys going to meet up, or are you going to be?
Nope, we're doing it right here.
Oh,
right
we're doing
here.
it right now. Oh, and ready.
We're going to do something different. There's going to be a segment that you guys will know what it's about.
Then I will mute myself to save my comments.
Good, because we don't want to hear you breathing in the background. All right, Andrea, well, go ahead.
Go ahead with what? So we're gonna
I thought we were going to discuss the 905. All right, I'll start us and stuff. The new ICOM 905. I normally ignore anything with that has to do with
ICOM?
No, I like ICOM. I avoid anything with QRP on that. And when I first started reading about this, I thought, okay, so they came out with a VHF, UHF radio that's 10 watts. Who gives a flip? Because 10 watts just don't hack it for any real communication, in my opinion, on VHF, UHF. Wait, you're not doing a good job, Sam. But then I started getting more and more into it, and there was a few things that actually started exciting me on the 905. The first thing is the fact that the RF deck actually goes up on the tower. So you eliminate all of the feed line losses at the tower. The antennas are mounted just, anywhere from 12 inches to 2 feet from the RF deck. I started looking at this from my own personal standpoint, and it's a great way to start getting in. I've been wanting to get into microwave operating and everything. But I'm not a big go out in the field person like Andrea and everything, and roving and all that wonderful stuff. I want to sit in the comfort of my air conditioned shack, and I want to talk. And when I'm done talking, I want to walk in the other room, go to the bathroom, get me something to drink, whatever I need to do. But I am staying in my shack. I'm old and set in my ways. What can I say? So I like the fact that this was letting me get an economical set. Well, I don't know how economical it'll be, but you know, they haven't announced the price yet. But it had the ability to get on 10 gigahertz, 9 centimeters, 13 centimeters, 1296. Those are all workable bands and power levels for the microwave bands. I will never ever use that radio on 2 meters and 70 centimeters, but 1296, nice Omni antenna, and use that particular radio for 1296 FM communications from my shack, because I've got pretty large antenna array for 1296 and 300 watts. So I'm not really, the 10 watt part won't excite me, and I don't see putting an amplifier up on my tower. But for FM, short range running around town, we've got 1296 FM in the truck plus sideband and everything. But the 9 and 13 centimeters, 2 watts is respectable at that level, especially with your antennas up above the treetops. I am a little concerned about just a half a watt on 10 gig, and I'll admit I have no experience operating 10 gigahertz. So
let me chime in here, Greg.
Yeah.
Now it's looking at the specifications, I find it a very interesting radio. ICOM announced this as 2.4 gig and 5.7. Well, they say 5.7 gig, depending upon where you are in the world. And they clearly have added in the 2 meters, 70 centimeters, and 1.2 gigahertz. They almost certainly were doing some down converting, and they got some feedback that suggested that would be good, and it gives them a broader market for the radio. A lot of people, kind of, you're talking about not experience at 10 gigahertz, and then 2.4 and 5.7 gigahertz. A lot of people are going to say, well, what do I do with that?
Well, while she's off to answer the phone, I'm going to take my conversation back. But I just see it as a good, well-rounded radio for getting people started in microwave and everything. The only complaint and concern that I have about it, and you can address that, Andrea, is because the RF deck is mounted on the tower, you got to run a Cat5 cable from the RF deck down to the head unit. And it's limited to 65 feet from what I am understanding. If it's limited to 65 feet, then it makes it useless for a lot of people with tall towers, which is where you need your microwave antennas. The shortest run that I can make into my shack with that Cat5 with the rotor loop and everything else up there would be about 98 feet. So my question, and I've actually written ICOM, I have not gotten a response back yet, and I didn't expect one, I just wrote them last night, is can we use a PoE injector or a PoE switch like in a NEMA closure at the base of the tower and then feed the rest of the way into the shack? Because the limiting factor is getting enough power to run the RF deck, and Cat5 is not exactly conductive to running heavy currents through it. which is another limiting factor on the wattage.
Nor is it conducive to high currents.
Yeah.
So
Pretty
getting back
nice
to getting back to what I was saying, it is a very intriguing offering, and a lot of people may wonder what they're going to do, because a lot of people think 1.2 gigahertz is getting very high in frequency, and you're limited, like so many people believe, by line of sight. And now you've got some very low power at 2 watts. Well, from my car, I operate 2 watts, 1 watt on 2.4 gigahertz. And I've made contacts with my antenna at 12 feet. Not even that. That one's more like 9 feet off the ground, upwards of about 120 miles with that 1 watt. Not great conditions. My experience on 5.7 gigahertz is very, very limited. So I'm not going to comment too much there, but you do have different band conditions that you occur, that you're looking at. Now, 10 gigahertz is a very intriguing band because a lot of the losses drop. And even though you don't think a lot about refraction, one of the big things is rain scatter. You can reflect signals off of thunder cloud tops, at 40,000 feet. So you think of something some distance away from you at 40,000 feet, that you can get line of sight to that, and anybody else within line of sight can pick you up. I've operated some 10 gigahertz, and we've got some pictures here that will that'll show me up on a hilltop with my setup of 5.7 and 10 gigahertz. I was only using 10 gigahertz that day. It's actually a dual band feed. So it's a single feed to the horn and a 1 meter dish. I think it's a little shorter than 1 meter. It's a 2-foot dish. And so those things are commercially available. Directive Systems has an offering of those. And my setup is 2 watts on 10 gigahertz, which is a very common, this past weekend was the 10 gigahertz and up contest. That power level is very common. And even the half watt that they're talking about on the ICOM offering is quite respectable on that band, because that dish I have at 10 gigahertz is 33 dB. My 2 watts of output power has an ERP of, I want to say I calculated about 7.5 kilowatts. And I've made contacts 290 miles from Pennsylvania up into Vermont. I've made contacts from Pennsylvania into Ontario, and from Pennsylvania out to Block Island. All quite good distances, and all those were with rain scatter. That setup on that tripod, I also want to comment, is heavy. That box has a lot of hardware. It has transverters, cooling fans, etc. And you can see I've got a IC 9700 on top. And if anybody's picked up a 9700, those ain't exactly light. And I'm telling you, the 905, I was actually thinking of substituting out a 705 QRP rig, because I only need 3 watts on 2 meters as my quote IF rig for the 5.7 and 10 gigahertz. So that would lighten that system up. But what ICOM's offering here would make it even lighter. You can put that little module on the back of the dish, have those two bands. Certainly 1.2 and 2.4 gig would be easy to mate there. I look at it from a roving standpoint, and I've thought about adding 5.7 and 10 gig to rover. And my concern there is the box that I have for those bands is that big box, and I've got a huge amount of wind load already. I would want a different antenna than the dish, probably one of these, there's, I don't know, I've heard them called grizzly bar type dishes, or grill, that they're just an open frame dish. And that would probably be acceptable to put on the car. And if I can get like a dual band feed to work that, the module would be nice. I think my biggest concern is, you've mentioned the Ethernet limitation. The other one, how weatherproof is this module that they have?
They actually addressed that in one of the ICOM video releases, and I don't remember the exact standard, but it reaches a good standard for almost submergible. It's
Okay.
not quite, but it's pretty weatherproof. So I don't think, unless you damage it, water inclusion is going to be an issue.
Well, I'm going to point out one big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Ethernet connections at one end and the coax connections are at the other.
Yeah.
It would be so much better if they were all on the same face, you could put facing down.
I agree with that, but they didn't. But, and again, you know, I'm only going by pictures that I'm seeing here right now. And until I get to see one, and we won't be able to do that until we all go to Dayton.
I've seen one there already.
Seen it already?
Yeah, and that was my first feedback I gave them on that.
Well, isn't it? It looked like almost a screw-in connector for the Cat 5 there, which kind of puzzled me. But
it's possible they have something different.
But
that
I mean, they
big
addressed the
concern.
waterproofing. So, I mean, you know, I would think, because of warranty issues, that they're going to cover that pretty good.
I don't know. These are engineers, and being an engineer, let me tell you, they miss big things all the time. It's like, oops, you know,
Yeah.
You might have to put the thing in a pail or something to keep it happy. You also have to, anything outdoors, if there's moisture that can move through connectors or something, the heating and cooling cycle, particularly morning dew time when everything's cold, metal unit like this is going to be slower to come up to the air temperature, and you're going to get condensation. And so I'd be a little wary about that. I know the box that I have, that's definitely a problem. And so there's actually a vent hole, and they have some fans to circulate some air.
Well, and that's one concern. I mean, they've got a heat sink on it, but you know, this is Texas. Without even anything being turned on, it's going to be 100+ degrees in the sun. And there's not a lot of shade on tall towers. I'll just leave it at that. And if there is, then you got a whole nother problem. You know, I see it as a unit with possibilities. Like I said, for my use, 2 meters and 432 are useless. I have a world of experience on 1.2 gigahertz. I've done a lot. We've got small arrays of 60 elements antennas, and then I've got one array with almost 400 elements up there on my 1296, and we can do 300 watts on it. So we've made a lot of really good contacts on it. But the only experience I have above 1296 is I was at a friend's house up in Austin, and we did some rain scatter on 10 gigahertz, and I thought that was pretty cool. I love the audio sound with all the refractions that you're getting on the signal. So it was pretty cool. But I've been wanting to get into microwave. I just, for some reason, over the years, haven't made the jump. This kind of puts it all in a neat little package for me. And I start doing some of the antennas and things like that. But the antennas that I picked for 10 gig and for 5.7 were the grill type dishes, because I'm concerned. I mean, you can see behind me. I've already got a lot of wind loading up there, so adding more just doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And I can mount those right on the cross booms there and mount that on the center mast in between the two cross booms. And I'm kind of there. The only thing I hadn't figured out is what I'm going to do on 2.4, and I'll probably just go with the Directive Systems loop antenna.
Yeah.
But I'm a newbie on microwave, so you know that's where that's at. And I'm waiting to see what the price is, but it don't matter if they're giving it away free. If I can't get past that 65-foot limit on the Cat 5, it's no deal for me. I can't make it work here.
Yeah. Well, I can, on the lower frequency bands, the 10 watts is often enough to drive high power amplifiers. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can hear the cats growling in the background here.
No.
They're going at it pretty good. You usually don't have that kilowatt amplifier up on the tower. And I'm not sure that this is the case, but if the 2 meter and 70 centimeter is up on the tower as well,
it is.
Okay, then it's kind of hard to put an amplifier and all that switching and all that amplifier that needs in terms of power up there. So
yeah, getting DC power of enough current up there, that's the deal breaker on that and stuff. So
I suspect though, and I don't know, I heard a notional price tossed around of quote similar to the IC 9700 when it came out, which would put it around $1,800, I think.
Yeah.
And as a turnkey or near turnkey, you just need an antenna for 10 gigahertz and 5.7. Compared to what people are putting together for transverters and such, it's not that bad a deal. And I also just wanted to add again a power level on 10 gigahertz. A contest station for like the 10 gigahertz up in contest is typically a tripod like I have there with a couple watts of power. So you're only 6 dB off that. That's not bad at all. And I'm talking a pretty competitive contest station. How can you think of the contest stations that are on HF or VHF, fixed locations, and how much people have putting into it? For like 10 gigahertz, you get in there pretty cheap for what amounts to almost a high-end contest station. And that's not that bad. And there's a very enthusiastic 10 gigahertz microwave community, 10 gigahertz and up. Dave K1RZ, Kilo 1 Romeo Zulu, he maintains a list. So now I'm going to get him bombarded by people interested. But if you contact him, he can get you on that distribution list. I had to put it into like daily digest. There were so many things popping out of that list. People going out doing grid expeditions on that band during the contests. Up for those up along the Great Lakes, there's stations that go up, and moving at 10 miles, you can work, you don't have to change grids, you can work stations again. And they move along the Great Lakes, shooting across the Great Lakes to other points, and move around out places out west. I've heard people go up to like Pikes Peak or some other high altitude and high elevation, and then people will go in a grid pattern in the flatter area surrounding to give them a lot of stations to work.
Yeah.
And what I've heard, I haven't looked at the results, is a lot of those stations are very effective in terms of doing well in the contest.
Yeah. And, I think this is, to kind of wrap this up, I think this is, it's a great system to get a lot of people. It's going to introduce a lot of people to microwave. Like the 9700 introduced a lot of people to 1296. I think this is going to introduce a lot of people to at least 13 centimeters and 9 centimeters operating, and should make the contest a lot more fun. It was interesting because this last June contest, I worked more 1296 stations this contest than I have the last 7 combined. So and I credit that to the 9700.
Yeah, very much. Now, I just want to correct things. You say 13 centimeters and 9 centimeters. 13 centimeters is 2.4 gigs. 9 centimeters is 3.4 gigs. It
Well,
does
that's
not
what they're
have that.
advertising as 9 centimeters.
It should be 5 centimeters.
Yeah, well, I just took their figures off of that. I was kind of wondering how we got to 5,600 megahertz with 9 centimeters, but I wasn't going to argue with them, and I didn't have time to look it up to confirm.
Okay. And then 10 gigs is 3 centimeters.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's roll it back on over to Sam, because she's sitting there and her nose is getting redder.
Or my nose is getting wider and my cheeks are getting redder. I'm not sure which way this goes, but trust me, fluorescent light is not doing me any good. There we go. Well, I got to tell you guys, there you go. We need to have the response that we have when we don't really watch the segments beforehand. Oh my God, that was amazing. I learned so much. Well, poor Melissa,
It's an intriguing radio, and I'm excited by the fact that somebody's coming out. I mean, ICOM's leading the pathway on pushing the limits on the higher frequencies.
I'm a Yaesu girl, and my husband's an ICOM guy, and you need to stop giving him ammo. We let you talk a lot this episode.
I know. All right, and we got your all segment, so let's roll into that.
Greetings, everybody. This is Sam, KE0LMY, and I've had quite a few requests for me to show my ham shack, which I can't even say is my ham shack because really it's my husband's ham shack. He is KD0WXT. So we had to start on the outside of the ham shack door because we have some really fun things here. The year of 2019 was the year of the pig for the Chinese New Year. And so we actually turned it into the year of the ham, and we did an entire set of special events that was Damn Amateur Radio Club, and it was so much fun. Then there's this sticker that I got for my husband because, well, if anybody doesn't get that, then The last thing I wanted to show you guys on the outside, my husband's nickname is Bigfoot because he's often heard but rarely seen.
Like now.
Like now. So, friends of ours, that would be Debbie and Steven Swirline, they went down to the Gulf Shores and they found this Bigfoot sticker, so they had to bring it home. And of course, I say that this is the man cave, but really it's the ham cave. So come on inside and let me show you a few things that we've got going on. We are into the skywarn and storm spotting quite a bit in our family. As a matter of fact, because my husband is a heavy equipment operator. Oh, sure. So we zoom in on the one that's mine, but because my husband's a heavy equipment operator, he actually has to keep an eye on the sky almost all the time. So we have a lot of Skywarn stuff, and all of these cards belong to KD0WXT. His favorite one back here behind the very glowy ham talk that I got from Greg is the Last Man Standing. That I think is his favorite one that he has ever gotten. So we definitely had to get that in here. My personal favorite one is the W9 IMS, the year that I was asked to be one of their guest, I guess, hosts for their special events for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then my favorite one of my husband's is this one because I just love that he's been in there contacting aliens. So he was able to get the Pecos Valley W5ZU Amateur Radio Club. And they had a special event going on back in 2017. So I love that one because he got it and I did not. So I'm a little bit jealous. Now the whole ham cave is yellow and black because of our friend Buzzer. You guys might recognize him from our Camden County Emergency Management Agency. He's the one that wants you to be prepared. So our entire color scheme for the ham cave is all Buzzer. Then again, it does help that the Heil headset is also black and yellow. For anybody who's curious, this is the headset that I use when doing special events. I'm going to do a kind of an overview on that, a review on that a little bit later. This is my baby, my pride and joy right here. This is my Yaesu FT991A. Roger got that for me when I became a general class license holder. So it was also about my birthday that year. I was pretty excited. Up here, I have my old license plate off of my old truck, which has my call sign on it. And this was a gift my husband made for me, showing some of the really neat things that very first year that I was really active. The pictures are from Winter Field Day with the Worky Warsaw Area Amateur Radio Club Incorporated. This was an outreach to our, I want to say our health department when we got them licensed. This was field day one year, and then these are all pictures of us operating at various events and things throughout Benton County, Missouri. And then of course I couldn't be outdone by W9 IMS. My husband got the same exact one that year because I was operating, so he was pretty excited. And then we have one of my favorite notices on up here on the wall, which we'll do a slow rundown of that, and you can just pause the video so that you have time to read it. It's a little smart alecky, but it's one of the reasons why we like it so much. So I absolutely adore that. Now my husband's radio, I try and leave that to last because, you know, he's an ICOM guy. I'm a Yaesu girl. There's that thing over there that he's got. So if you want to hear about ICOM stuff, don't ask me because no. Now you will see a few other things in the shack. We have the new Baofangs that my son got. I believe these are the new UV82s. And they're amazing. One of the things I love about them is being able to not only listen to both bands at the same time, but be able to talk on either one of them without having to switch over from the first to the second. So I love that. Desk mic is absolutely necessary when you run weekly nets, which as you can see, we run our Benton County Aries net from here. And please ignore the old script that Renee is having a blast right now. That was her hand magically appearing in the frame. But this is our cute little ham shack in our house, and I want to say thank you very much. I give Greg a lot of guff on Ham Talk, but he has been one of the most kind, most supportive ham radio operators that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. So that's our little shack. I hope that you guys found it entertaining. And of course, I'll be talking to Melissa, doing a little audio about this segment. And then that way, if she wants to ask questions about anything that she saw in here that she wants more information on, I'll give her that information. In the meantime, thank you from KE0LMY.
Or KD0WXT Bigfoot.
And the girl behind the camera,
KE0LMZ.
thanks guys, 73. I know y'all just love my shack. I can't even call it mine because I'm probably going to have Roger, because I haven't shot it yet either. I'm probably going to have Roger go through there with me, and he won't want to be on camera, but at least I can get him talking all that technical stuff y'all like to talk. Look, I am not here for the technical part, okay? That's their job.
Well, there you go.
I do want to brag just a tiny bit. I try not to do this too much, but I was given something that I thought was really, really neat today. And I just want to share it because there are people who like to know what we're doing. And I was actually presented, or the Camden County Emergency Management Agency was presented with the WRN, which is Weather Ready Nation, Ambassador of the Year for the National Weather Service Springfield, Missouri office. So,
Hey, there you go. All right.
I
Congratulations.
send Greg the picture. That way, if he wants to insert it, and you guys can pause the video and read it, because there's a whole write-up on all the things we did this year. It makes me tired just reading it, but I am so grateful to the National Weather Service because we are connected so tightly, even through ham radio, with the National Weather Service through Skywarn. I'm sure many of you know that name. Many of you are in the program. If you don't, contact your local emergency management office or contact your local National Weather Service office. Ham radio operators are always sought after by Skywarn to get a lot of the information that first responders use, especially when they're doing things like search and rescue, or if they're having to be out during events. I won't get into the runaway boat during the Lake of the Ozarks shootout too much, but there was one. Look it up. But we had to actually call both days early because of incoming thunderstorms that had a tremendous amount of lightning in them. So definitely amateur radio operators, you are needed, and especially by the National Weather Service. If your emergency management office isn't involved as much with it, contact the National Weather Service's office directly, because there are not only online classes that you can take to register as a Skywarn storm spotter, but you can then also take some of the in-seat storm spotter classes. See, I tied it in. Didn't I do well?
Yes, you did. And it even fits into my segment on grounding.
Grounding.
So with that, let's roll into grounding. All right, let's go ahead and start off with a simple statement of fact. I am not a grounding expert. I don't play one on television, and by no means do I pretend to be a grounding expert. What I am sharing here today is what I have done for my personal shack and the reasoning behind what I've done. Take this and use it as part of your learning and combine it with other sources, and you should be way ahead of the game. Bottom line for us, anybody with a tall antenna tower is eventually going to get hit by lightning. That's just a simple reality of those of us that are in amateur radio and building and working together. So what I wanted to do is I looked at it, and through research I found most lightning strikes are ground to cloud. All right, so the item on the ground, be it your antenna tower, tree, house, whatever it happens to be, builds up a static charge. That static charge then gets to an intensity point. It's looking for something to discharge to. Little cloud comes floating by with the wrong polarity, bada boom, you got a lightning strike now. Okay? So my theory behind this to prevent this is twofold. Number one, I want to bleed off as much energy as possible if I get hit from a cloud to ground strike. And then to prevent ground to cloud strikes, I want to keep energy from building up, period. All right. How does energy build up on antennas? All right. Well, wind. You ever been using your dipole or an antenna or listening and working AM or HF, single sideband and everything? You end up with a lot of static popping and stuff on windy days, especially dry windy days. Throw a little snow in there or a little bit of dust, and you can build up some serious voltages. I actually had one time, we were working on an antenna, and we disconnected from the hard line coming down at the rotor loop at the top of the tower. The center pin of that cable that was hanging 20 feet off of the antenna scraped across the tower leg, created a huge arc of electricity, and left a burn mark in the leg of the tower. That's how much voltage you can build up with a light, dry breeze. It was a very dry day that day, and it was breezy, 5 to 10 mile an hour breezes blowing, and that created a huge shock. I actually had an electrical burn on my wrist one time from the exact same thing. So voltages can get extremely high, and you want to bleed them off. And unfortunately, that antenna was connected. It wasn't grounded at the time and everything. And it wasn't a DC short antenna. So when I started this project a few years back, and by a few years, I'm talking 20 years now, 25, what I did is I actually turned around and started purchasing and building only DC short antennas. So every antenna I've got is a dead short to DC current. All right, so that helps bleed off energy. It puts a dead short across it. It assists in keeping it from building up. The second thing I do coming off of my tower is it comes down the rotor loop from the antenna, and at the junction point at the top of the tower where it connects to the hard line, it has a surge protector. That surge protector is grounded to the tower, so it's bleeding off any high voltages that should arise right there. Feeds down to the shack, goes into a junction panel inside the shack where all the cables come together, and that's grounded. All right, as is all of my electrical and DC equipment, but we'll get to that in a minute. At the tower, you'll see that I've got heavy gauge cable that is connected to every tower leg. So we have 4 towers. All 3 legs on all 4 towers are grounded. And then we go ahead and go from that to multiple ground rods. All right, how much energy you can bleed away from your tower as the energy builds up depends on the conductivity of your ground. Where I'm at, it's a lot of clay, stone, and everything. So we drove in all of our ground rods, and I drove in quite a few. I actually have like 12, 13 ground rods and stuff here. Let's pull up a picture of the location, and you'll see what it does is it comes off. You'll see the towers in my diagram here. The cable comes off the tower, goes into the first ground rod, and then there's a ground rod between towers and stuff. You can follow it around, and I have a series of 8 to 10 foot ground rods, and I have 12 foot ground rods. And so each ground rod is separated by the distance it is deep. So if it's a 12-foot ground rod, it's 12 feet apart. By building this whole field up, I actually created two benefits. Number one, I've created a massive electrical field for me to drain energy off on. I also have spread out a nice RF field, so it's really cleaned up my audio and stuff and signals and helped my reception. I notice a big difference with and without the grounding on my log periodic for HF. So it has the advantage. So what I'm doing with this large ground field is we're bleeding off as much energy as possible. It's creating a quieter signal for two reasons. Number one, we're bleeding off the static charges that are popping and making noise up on my antenna towers. So that's not popping and coming down the line to my radios. It's extending the life of my radios because I'm not sending high voltage spikes down the feed line to damage the radios. So two benefits: quieter and less damage to the systems. All right. Then the other advantage is it's creating a nice RF field. It takes up, my ground system takes up the entire backyard and a portion of the side yard where we run the cables up to the front ground rods by the front tower. And it also bonds with the electrical ground on our house. Okay. Inside the tower is where I made the connections, and this was pointed out to me some time back, and I made a move with those. It was pointed out that by putting the cables for the ground actually inside the tower legs, that I was actually creating a choke point. So you know, I don't know 100%, but this person actually is an engineer for grounding for radio stations. So I'm going to assume, and I assumed, that he knew exactly what he was talking about. And I turned around and put those into the outside and bonded them. So each ground rod is bonded with that heavy cable. Each tower leg's bonded to ground rods. There's a ground rod in between the two towers and everything. So if we go back to the diagram, you can see my entire pattern of the grounding system. All right. So with that, we're pretty well grounded. Now look at the electrical bus panel. This is my DC panel. It's providing just over 200 amps of current to run my entire shack. And everything on it is DC grounded, it's DC breakers, and we've got everything functional. And that whole electrical system is grounded as well. So not only is my AC system grounded, but my DC power supply system is grounded at the buses and stuff. And then also all my equipment is grounded at the grounding post. So inside the shack, everything is bonded and grounded, designed to bleed off any excess energy that gets into the shack in any way, shape, or form. We go out, we go through the ground rods, and outside the towers are all 100% bonded, and the antennas are all bonded to the tower. So does it work this way? I can't guarantee it. Like I said, I'm not an expert. But what I can tell you is we had one massive thunderstorm about 15, 20 years ago. I've got a neighbor whose tower is similar to mine in height and everything, less than 1,500 feet away. He took a direct hit during that thunderstorm and lost almost all the electronics in his house, computers, radios, televisions, and everything. Got another friend that is less than a quarter mile from me. That same thunderstorm, he took a direct hit. Now his radios and stuff were disconnected, but he lost 3 antennas. They were destroyed. That's how intense that direct hit was. And then about a mile and a half down the road from me, another ham took a direct hit that same thunderstorm, and he lost his entire shack. All of the equipment was damaged and destroyed. I never even got a blip in here that I can tell. None of my equipment was bothered. I never went off the air, and stuff. So does it work? Well, either I was extremely lucky, or my grounding system works, or I choose to believe I was extremely lucky and my grounding system works. So we've got that. We'll go, if there's an interest in grounding, we'll go into a lot of detail in a future show, but we kind of ran a little bit over today with the activity on the new ICOM radio, and we wanted to talk about that and stuff. So this one's kind of just a brief overlay, but throw your comments in if you want to learn more about it. I can go into extremely strong detail on exactly what I did, but this just gives you a brief overlay of what I did and why I did it. All right, let's head on back.
I'm so good at segues this month. I'm just getting better at this segue thing. That's what I'm perfecting. They can keep doing, again, all the technical stuff, and I'll just work on the segues. And of course, Andrea can give me the comic relief when Greg just gets out of hand. And I think if he considers himself the center of the universe, next month he needs to have the sun or something as his background picture.
I
We're gonna
did,
start
but it
knitting
dims
this
in my
together.
presence.
Or he is the sun. Maybe he needs all the planets behind him.
Yeah,
That's what he needs.
I didn't want people to get worried when the sun dimmed with my brightness.
All right, so you guys have hopefully gotten your fill of us for this month. I know there are some people who get disappointed if Greg doesn't get the whole show out on time. So Greg, get on that. But we appreciate you guys checking with us every time we get a new video out. We appreciate the comments. And remember, Mike, we want your segment. We want pictures of your ham shack, because you are our best and I would say almost our first follower, if I had to guess, because I've seen his comments on almost every single one of the episodes. So yes, Mike, we're calling you out. Get it in there. We will make Greg put all the information down in the box, because he always forgets. Trust me, I go back and look. And we want your pictures so that Melissa can get you on her segment of Show Us Your Shack, and we can continue to interact with our followers and answer questions for you. So submit your questions, submit your shacks, and anything else that you want to do, because we love interacting with you guys. All right, final comments, keep them brief, Greg.
I have nothing more to say.
Miss Melissa.
That's what I was gonna say. I got nothing.
Andrea, you've got to have something.
Oh, I don't know. Greg was talking about being so bright, but I was thinking to myself, the only thing heavier than stars and the sun are black holes. Just suck.
You know, Andrea, we're going to have a talk the next time.
God forbid we get these two in the same area again. I don't know. It'll happen sooner or later.
Yeah, I drove all the way to Brenham, Texas to have breakfast with her.
We'll try and get it on video so you guys can enjoy it too.
But there was a couple pictures.
I was going to say, one of these days, I'm going to be able to get in the same state with these three so that we can actually have one of those amazing once in a lifetime moments where we're all in one area. It's what happens when you reach out to Missouri and you try and, get me.
We got almost all the way to you.
Almost.
When we went to Huntsville. Well, we need to do Dayton next. Well, actually, I guess it's not Dayton anymore.
No. All right, guys, send us your information, your comments, your pictures of your shacks. We really appreciate you following us, and thank you so much for everything you do. One more thank you to our sponsors, the Hamsters Week Signal Group, and I'll say 73 and see you next month.
73s, everybody.